So hello, welcome for being here. I'm excited to have you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course. So I am going to let you introduce yourself.
Okay, awesome.
So, who are you? What do you do?
Yeah, I'm so bad at intros. I'm Amy Yeoman, and I am the owner of Fuel to Thrive, which is a local group of dietitians and trainers. We just try and help people kind of like reach their lifestyle goals. I'm also a mom. I'm also a new mom, I should say. I'm also a triathlete. Yeah, that's kind of me.
In a nutshell.
In a nutshell.
I do all the things, but it's in a nutshell.
In a nutshell.
Yes. Well, welcome. So we met a couple years ago at like a business gathering. And so that's why I reached out, is because I was really fascinated with what you do and how you spoke about what you do. Can you speak to kind of your, dare I say, out of the box? It's not so out of the box. It should be standard, but it's not.
But it
approach to the work that you do as a dietitian and trainer.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think our like the world of diet, let's say, I think diet can be like bad, like low carb, that's a diet. But when I say diet, I'm kind of speaking of like the foods we eat. So our world is kind of like wrapped up in so many like harsh ideas about diet and exercise. So we really try and approach it from like a one-on-one approach, like really sit down with the client, see where they're struggling, and kind of like in a lot of instances, like taking people out of the narratives they've fallen into based off what culture has told them, which all of that sounds very vague, but like so much of what we do is like, hey, what's your goal? What are you struggling with? How can we add like science and truth to that in applicable ways so that you can kind of reach your goal in a healthy way. Yeah.
Okay. What have you seen in that work? Like what's some of your challenges, some of your successes, your joys?
Some of the joys I've had is just like, I love working with people. I love like being in people's stories, and like helping them reach a goal, or, even like helping them find food freedom. I think that's like such a fun and beautiful thing to be a part of. Mm-hmm. Some of the challenges I face is like, sometimes I feel like a little voice that's like trying to speak truth in this world of influencers and, like black and whites and stuff like that. So I just think that like, should I say my competition is pretty, it's a big challenge for me to kind of like stand out and say like, no, this is what science says. And this is, like what we're taught in the world of dietetics, and, to like go against somebody who has a perfect body on Instagram. It's like hard to kind of fight that.
Yeah. It's so hard to fight that.
Yeah.
I mean, even as a therapist, like most of the people that I sit with have some sort of, body image or expectation on what body needs to be looking like or where I should be.
Totally.
Or even disordered eating, or just really like absolutely no knowledge of like food, or what that realistically looks like, even from like a caloric level.
Totally.
Like, I think we subscribe to like the 1,500 calorie diet that was made in the 70s for white bodies.
Totally.
And we've never moved past that.
I know, seriously.
Mm-hmm. What is that like? Because sitting with that is hard.
It's so hard. And I would say all of us, like to some extent, have a level of disordered eating. And it's just because we've grown up in like, that's just the way food is talked about in our society. And like even in family gatherings or, like a lot of us had parents that maybe talked about food in that way. And so I think that like, whether you know it or not, you kind of have these ideas around what healthy food looks like.
Totally.
And so to like try and debunk those and create a new framework is hard, and also in ways that are like educational. I don't know if that makes sense, but like in a way that's like, this is educational and applicable to your individual life, but also like, let's debunk some of this like gunk that you have around certain foods or certain food groups or whatever it is.
Totally. And that's, I mean, it's so dominant. Like, often I work from, it's called Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Totally.
And in the basic foundation, right, it's like food, shelter. And so if someone is really, has a lot of, I think you use the word gunk around food and food belief and body belief, a lot of shame, we're not even getting our basic stabilizers through food and nutrition and calorie.
Totally.
It's so hard to move up that scale and to do other work.
For sure.
Do you see a lot of that where their goals are maybe so far ahead of where they actually are?
Totally.
Yeah.
And even, I wouldn't even say goals. I mean, yes, definitely. But I even think that like our idea of what quote unquote healthy diet is like, I have a lot of people who come to me and they're like, okay, I'm going to make a change. I'm going to flip my whole entire routine 180 degrees and I'm going to start counting calories and I'm going to start eating all organic and I'm going to start, like all the things that they think they should be doing. And we just like, we don't make change that way. So, I think that like focusing on the foundations can get people so far. And most of us are like missing those foundations of, what like a nourishing and healthy diet looks like.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. Like people think they need to be at the top of the pyramid when really we actually need to set that foundation pretty strong. Yeah.
Yeah. What are some of those foundations for those people listening?
Yeah,
like,
totally.
Amy's going to tell me all the shit.
It's going to sound super not sexy and
I'm here for it.
Yeah, pretty boring, but getting enough nutrition, so enough calories is one.
Gross.
I know. So
I hear people in my head that are just like, no.
Totally. Yeah. Which is, calories are important.
Yeah. So important.
So important. And even just like focusing on protein, focusing on whole grains, focusing on fruits and vegetables, focusing on foods that make you feel good, eating to fullness, eating when you're hungry. I think so much of it is like learning to trust our bodies because our bodies are so great at cueing us like it's time to eat. And I think that especially kind of in that diet culture, it's like, I can't be hungry right now. It's not the time to eat, or I already ate my calories for the day or whatever, So I think that like so much of it is building that trust with your body and trust that you're like working with it and you shouldn't be working against it. I don't know if that makes sense.
It totally makes sense. In the work I do, I talk a lot about listening to body and trusting body and trusting experience.
Totally.
Because so often we find people, and even in my own story, where we've been taught the opposite, not to trust our body, not to trust our experience, to kind of work around the elephant in the room rather than just kind of calling it out and confronting it and working through it.
Totally.
How has what led you to this work? Like, if you don't have to go deep, but I'm curious about like your own story in this work.
So I kind of, usually when I tell this story, I talk about how I started running in high school. I was always active, but I never, like jumped into one sport. I was like, I wanted to do all the sports and all the things. So I started running. I loved running. And then I kind of started to just play with like how the different foods made me feel when I, like before practice and after practice, and how that kind of changed my experience running. Like if I ate something that was fueling, then I felt good while I ran and didn't upset my stomach, and simple things like that just had me kind of like paying more attention to food. And I always kind of also knew I wanted to help people, and I didn't know what that looked like. But I think that as I got closer to like college and deciding what I was going to study and all of that, I think kind of seeing that I had a passion for activity and food, and also like could pair it with helping people, was the way I initially got started. I think that like from those early days, I don't know if I would say I subscribed to the diet culture, but in my mind it was like, oh, these are the 10 steps that if you follow these rules all the time, like you're going to be healthy. You're going to be in this like quote unquote healthy population. And I think that so much of this journey for me has kind of been like unlearning that. And like it's so easy. It would be easy if there was a basic framework for us to all
Wouldn't
follow.
that be great?
Yeah, seriously. But I think that like seeing that that's not true, and like even my framework looks different than the next person's framework, and I think has been part of the journey for me, but which has like helped me, I think, help my clients better too. Yeah.
Do you ever fall into that trap of the generalized?
Oh, for sure.
What do you do when you recognize like, oh, I'm doing the thing?
Totally. I mean, going back to what you said, like relying on past experience for me is, I think in all areas of my life, that's something that can ground me pretty well. So, if there are moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't eat that. That's so much sugar. That's so many carbs. Like thinking back to like, oh yeah, you've done this before. Your body's like made it through. It didn't gain 10 pounds overnight. Like you're okay. And kind of going back to like, okay, I got to trust my body in this. We've been through this before. We can do it. Yeah. Also, you can enjoy your food.
Yeah. So a lot of self-compassion and kind of like talking through what's happening.
Yeah.
And allowing.
Totally.
That's really what I'm hearing. Like, it's not a no. It's just like coming back to that foundational trust.
Totally.
Of we're going to make it through, and it's not a permanent.
Totally.
Kind of getting out of that black and white.
Yeah.
Nice. And you shared earlier you're a mom.
Yes.
So how has that impacted just personal, professional?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yes, it has impacted. So in ways I probably like am not even recognizing at this point. But I like the human body is so cool. And I just like over the last year and a half, I don't know how long it's been since I got pregnant, but I've just gotten to experience like, you know, a huge transformation of like growing a human and then bringing a human into the world and then feeding a human. And just seeing the way my body has changed through that. And also like totally letting go to the ideas of like, there's just like so much stigma around baby weight and like, don't gain too much weight. And like so much negativity like in that space of pregnancy and postpartum. And for me, I've just kind of taken the approach like, no, my job right now is to like fuel my body to fuel this baby. Has been like a fun experience, I think, for me to kind of just like open up the doors and again, kind of take away some of those like gunky stigmas I had around food, and just let the process happen, I think has been really cool. Yeah.
Did pregnancy impact your training and your movement?
Totally. Yeah. I was very fortunate I was able to move throughout my pregnancy, and, you know, I ran through a lot of it. I had to change the way I was running, but, you know, it was like a lot of run walking at the end, which is like, I had to be okay with that. I was able to swim through my whole pregnancy and bike through my whole pregnancy and like lift or strength train to some extent. And I think that I feel very fortunate for that, because that also helped me keep me grounded, because it's just like, I really enjoy doing those things. And then, I in kind of like healing from delivery, had to just like, I think my husband would probably laugh with me talking about this, because he had to just keep being like, be patient, Amy, be patient, be patient. And I think that like, I knew I had to be patient. I didn't want to be patient, but
of course, you're like, I'm ready.
Yeah, totally.
Even if my body's not.
But yeah, I think just like flexing that muscle, that even though it was uncomfortable for me, to just like sit through the recovery and let my body recover, I think was really good for me to have to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point, it becomes a mental game because it's not even like, I mean, your body physically is probably not capable of doing the things you want to be doing. Yeah. And so it is just like, you know, how am I going to combat the boredom today or the sleep fatigue or the anxiety, whatever you're experiencing.
Totally. Yeah. And I mean, I have a friend who, she's a mom as well. And we were talking kind of in those early weeks about the book Burnout. I've actually never read the book, but I've like heard the concepts behind it.
I've done the Cliff Notes.
Yeah, totally. And the idea of like how activity can help close the stress cycle. And she was like, I really feel for you, Amy, because you're in this whole new realm. You're obviously like stressed as anybody would be in this situation, and you like are so used to closing your stress cycle that way, and you can't. And I think that was like a good moment for me to be like, oh yeah, I'm feeling this way because like I could identify why I was feeling that way, and I think that was like a really good and also hard truth to come to.
Totally.
But also helped me see activity in like a new light, like, okay, what can I do to kind of like close that stress cycle in this moment? Even if it's not getting my heart rate up or, doing things that I normally could do.
Totally. Yeah. And that's a really good way to think about it. You know, it really highlights what's happening and gives you enough awareness to do something different.
Totally.
And that something different has to happen.
Yeah, totally.
You have to do something to manage the stress.
Totally.
Especially with a newborn.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It was so hard. Yeah.
How did you and how are you still managing business and being a new mom? Like, what's that journey been like?
It's been the hardest year of like business ownership. And I think I like kind of maybe was naive to the fact that it was going to be so hard. I just like, you don't know what you don't know. I didn't know what it was like to be a parent and have to manage childcare and all of that stuff. So
Totally.
I think for me, it's like, forced me to manage that, has also forced me to kind of like have pretty clear boundaries of like, okay, when I'm home, like try to be home, try and be present. Whereas in the past I would just kind of like let work seep in.
Yeah. Totally.
So yeah, that's been really hard and good to learn. But yeah, I think that I've also had to like kind of pump my brakes in the sense of like, I want the business to get to X place. And in the past I could have like expedited that process. And now I have to be like, okay, like it's going to take a little bit longer and let's practice patience and
that slowdown is impacting not only personal but also the professional timeline.
Yes, totally. Yeah. But like I have to say there's like so much more joy in my life. I think because of it. I think I'm like forced to slow down, whereas before there was nothing forcing me to slow down. Yeah. Which was probably a really unhealthy place for me to be. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's been a good thing for me.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so easy to get as even as a business owner, caught up in the go.
Totally.
Like you're always thinking future, what do I need to be doing more of, or what could I be doing next?
Totally.
So.
And like when your like paycheck really relies on those like getting X, Y, and Z done, it's like a harsh reality to be like, okay, how does this need to change? How do my expectations need to change? And
totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. How has that impacted maybe what you're teaching with clients or even what you're practicing with clients, that slowdown?
Totally. I think I tried to have grace and empathy for the people I work with that were parents, but now I'm just like
it's a whole new level. Now you're in the space of compassion, and now you're really in the space of empathy.
And I'm like, okay, let's make this as easy as possible. I just think I have like a whole new lens that I can see and relate to people with now.
Yes. Lived experience
totally.
Does that.
Yeah. And even, just the process of like body transformation and maybe like moments where I wasn't super happy with the way I looked. And, you know, I think just all of those things gave me more moments to connect with my clients. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like things shifted in relationship through pregnancy? And I mean, just even the shift in priorities where I imagine you're like at 150% in the business and now it's like 50-50.
Totally.
Or even like 70-40, 70-30, you know, like.
Totally. Yeah. And I think that, yes, like my priorities have had to shift. And I think I have another friend who owns a business, and she had said, like, you can have it all, but you can't have it all at once. She's also a mom. So I think that that's been something that's like a good little mantra to have in my head. Like, before I could have it all at once, I could, you know, be training and spend time with my husband and be crushing it in the business and, you know, have friends and do what I wanted on the weekends. And now it's just like, okay, like that needs to look different, and it's not bad, but it's just new and I got to try it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel like it's impacted social support, or do you feel like that has stayed pretty strong in community and there's been flexibility in like coming in and coming out? And
yeah, that's a good question. I'm like,
well, I just think of like the new mom, like you don't want to leave your nest.
Totally.
And that can, you know, lead to just more isolation.
Totally.
Or like,
yeah.
you know, life kind of goes on, but for you in your world.
Man, I have felt that so like deeply. I think, so our daughter is 9 months. I would say at 8 months, I like felt like I was coming out of like, I thought life felt normal, but at 8 months I was like, oh, it has really not been normal in the sense of like, we just like, we have great community, but we weren't reaching out to community. And therefore I don't really feel like our community was reaching out to us and not, you know, like we didn't know how to ask for help, and their life went on as it always does. And so I think, that's just been like something I've been sitting with the last couple of months is like, okay, how do I re-engage in community? What does community need to look like for me? And kind of like assessing some of the relationships and, you know, parsing out like who the important friends are and what are the relationships that I don't have like capacity to try for anymore. Yeah. I don't know. That sounds so harsh, but
it doesn't.
That's where my heart's at.
Because it does come down to capacity and energy. And, you know, I think in my healing journey, often it comes down to, is relationship reciprocal?
Totally.
Right? Like, am I, what I give as a pretty open-hearted human, like, am I feeling as though friends are making a mutual effort?
Totally.
That's important to me,
yeah.
right? Because there are days where I literally don't have the energy.
Yeah.
And I need someone to text me and check in on me, like, hey, how's your day? How's it going? You
totally.
know?
Yeah.
Like, or, you know, summers I'm busy, I'm gone. And so I have friends who are just like, yeah, it's summer. Heather will be gone for 3 months and I'll see you in the fall, you know, like.
Totally.
So it just depends on the people, but doing that evaluation of like, what can I realistically hold and what do I want to re-engage and step back into, I think is just reality when life is changing.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard.
It's so hard.
Yeah. What do you hope for in your business? Like, if you in a perfect world, like if you could have the ideal, like what would you hope clients experienced, felt, you got to experience and feel?
Totally. Yeah. I think I have this like dream. I just, okay, let me take it a step back. Spokane, I feel like is lacking, like outpatient dietitians. Like there's so much need.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so obnoxious.
Totally.
Every time I want to refer, I'm like, okay, we have 2 places that I actually trust to be trained enough to do the work I want.
Totally. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Fucking annoying.
Which I think is like great for me, but hard for the population of Spokane. So I would love to have like a business of dietitians that are like specialized in different areas so that we can be, I don't want to say the one-stop shop, but we can be like a trusted and reliable place for most populations to come and get the help they need. So that's like big picture what I would want. I think that like from a interaction level, I just want people to feel like heard and seen, and like we value their time and their journey and the work that they're putting in, and like I want them to feel supported. And I think a lot of people like think they're going to come to me and it's going to be like a harsh regimen that they need to follow, or you know, like, yeah, I guess like I feel most successful when people say like, oh yeah, I had your voice pop in my head last night when I was like having this difficult fight in my head about whether I should eat that or not. And, you know, and then I felt like, okay, I can eat that because of a conversation we had before. So I just think that like really kind of like meeting people on a real basis and like meeting them where they're at and helping them move forward is kind of my goal. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's very broad, but yeah.
Well, just keeping it very client-led.
Totally.
And like having the positive impact of integration, right? Like when we can hear someone's voice in our head, that means that we are attached enough to the idea or the human that they become kind of not a part of us, but a part of us, like our psyche, you know, which can go really good and be really good or be not so good. So in this case, it's really good when your clients are able to integrate your voice and then help in that decision-making process around food. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. Do you, when you work with clients, does it bring up, you know, own struggles, fears, worries?
For sure. Yeah.
Story.
Yeah. Which I think is like part of the beauty of the work, is I feel like I am constantly challenging myself based off of what I'm telling my clients, you know? So it's like, if I told a client to not be afraid of eating dessert, like, why am I having this internal battle about eating dessert? You know, that's a very simple example. But I think that like, as I grow, I can help my clients grow as well. Just from like the sense that we're all experiencing eating, you know, at least 3 times a day. And there's a lot that can come with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just talking to another human the other day, and they were like, you know, as a creator, like it really wasn't a good plan to make the body so complicated. You know, like it's a lot of maintenance. Like to have to feed yourself constantly. Like it's not super efficient. And I had a good laugh at that because it does require a lot of attention when you're being very intentional about how you're fueling. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. But like in the same sense, like it's good that we have those, and I know we don't all feel this way about eating, but like it is a moment to rest. Like when you're eating, it can be a moment to rest. So like if we can spin it in that way, like maybe it's just designed for us to have 3 20-second or 20-minute breaks throughout the day. And that's good for our souls.
Yeah.
It is good for
our souls. And I think of, I mean, me, I grew up with food being very centered, like very important in the family. Like we love food. I mean, we grew up in the Bay Area, so it's like, you know, constantly like, what are we eating next? Or let's try this new space. So when food is so centered, it does take up a lot of time and attention and, you know, I think of, you know, a lot of different humans as we have this conversation, and family, and even myself. And I'm wondering kind of what your, I don't know if advice is the right word, but like what would your advice be to someone who maybe grew up with no structure around food, like has no concept of food or no real relationship with food.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Totally.
Yeah. Like, and I'm very like, I love food.
Yeah.
Food's amazing, but a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
So what do you do with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good question. I think focusing on like how different foods make you feel, which I know that's a learned skill too, but like our bodies are really good at telling us what they like and what they don't like. So I think, eat something and see how it makes you feel. And if it feels good, then keep doing it. If it doesn't, don't keep doing it. Yeah, but I also think like balance is huge, as far as like balancing plates, but also like balancing, let's say, quote unquote, I'm quoting my fingers right now, healthy food versus non-healthy food, like everything needs to be in moderation and in kind of a balance that works for you. And it might be different than the next person's balance, but there's no like, there are like principles, like get enough protein and get enough fruits and vegetables and get your vitamins and minerals. Like those things are important, and I can't say they're not, but we can fill those buckets in a lot of different ways. It doesn't have to be just chicken, rice, and broccoli all the time,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think of like every influencer and they're like meal prep and broccoli and chicken and rice. And you're like, what the fuck? I don't want to eat the same thing 5 days in a row.
Totally. Yeah.
Right. And I think even like, thinking of motherhood, like you don't maybe necessarily always have the energy to cook dinner.
Totally.
Or to make a healthy breakfast.
Totally.
Or, like you're in that scramble of just getting really basic needs met.
Yeah.
Yeah. How have you kind of balanced that?
Yeah. I've standardized. I'm actually really proud of this. Because I think it's like super applicable.
Gold star.
To a lot of people. But I've like standardized our weekly menus in the sense of like, I sit down every couple months and I write out 3 different weeks worth of like dinners that are easy for my husband and I to make, and make sure that they make enough for lunches, leftovers too. And then I write out the list and like link the recipes, and then my husband and I both have access to those. It's just a matter of like printing out, going to the store, and using those like through 2 or 3 cycles. So you don't have to think about it every week. It's like done for a couple months. I don't know if that, I hope that makes sense. But
you're like in the preparation, you just, do the bulk up front.
Totally.
So then it's easier on the back end.
On the back end. Yeah. But also relying on, when I first became a dietitian, like we made everything from scratch and we like really enjoyed cooking. And I remember people being like, just wait till your parents, like, and like in ways I'm like, that was really mean to say, but like, let us enjoy this moment. But also like I think parenthood has forced us to like look at some of those different options, like frozen chicken that's already cooked and like reheating it, or, even looking at like pre-prepared meals and, just kind of like walking into that realm that maybe we hadn't before, and being okay with like, okay, dinners might look different than they used to, and that's okay. Or maybe we're eating out a little bit more often than we were, and that's okay too. Just kind of like stepping away from, again, that like maybe rigid structure that we had before.
Totally.
To make it a little bit more flexible.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's hard. I get that. I mean, I cook a lot, and it's, you get very preferential, and kind of, for me, it felt very like almost spoiled of like, oh, I have the luxury to, make homemade tortillas or whatever.
Totally.
And on the busy weeks, it's like, no, we're doing like store-bought tortillas, and that just has to be okay. And it's not forever. I can't not do my preference again, but I do need to be flexible in order to function.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that like, one thing that I've like learned in the last couple years is like everything's a season, and like, I feel like that's overused. Maybe it's not overused. It's talked about a lot, but I think that like actually living through that, like, okay, this season, it just, dinners look simple and that's okay. And they won't always be this way. We can get back to a place where we like are trying new recipes and cooking the ways we love to, but that's just not the season we're in right now. And that's okay.
Totally. And I think that parallels to even like cycles and food and like, you know, there's definitely abundant seasons and dormant seasons, and food can parallel that, and function can parallel that. And, I think when you're in the season of parenthood, there's, you know, priorities shift. It, you know, I always say like, you know, I quote like the 30%, it takes 30% of being a good parent in order to create a secure child. Well, I imagine you're doing more than the 30%.
That, like, I heard that and that blew my mind.
Yeah. Like, have they eaten? Have they slept? Are they safe?
Totally.
Like, you're good, honestly. Like, you're not scarring them.
Totally.
You know?
Which, is a whole other, like, rabbit hole to go down. But, yeah.
And even your own body. Like, our bodies are so resilient.
Seriously.
So it's like, again, coming back to that body trust of, like, yeah, I can, you know, completely go off the deep end for a couple weeks and that's okay, but trusting my body is going to level back out.
Totally.
And, like, there's a need in going off that deep end. I'm going to come back.
Totally.
Is important.
So important. Yeah.
I was just reading, I don't know if you've heard of it, but I was just reading a book. It's called Reclaim Body Trust.
I don't think I have. I haven't heard of that one.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to like misquote a bunch of shit, but I think it was written by two nutritionists.
Okay.
Maybe dietitians. I can't remember. But they basically built this curriculum, like the intuitive movement and like, you know, literal body trust as a framework. And they teach trainers, they teach nutritionists, they teach dietitians, like how to work from that framework. And it's super fascinating because it's even like, you know, if you're doing, you know, weight training or you're doing running intervals, whatever, you don't look to someone else to even know when to begin again. Like, is your body ready to begin again?
Yeah.
Which blew my mind. Like, growing up as an athlete, like, I only looked to coaches, to other people, like, and then there's that, like, teamwork, like, can't let the team down, you got to push through, you know, like, that whole framework. And this book just basically, like, blew my mind because it was like, what are we talking about? Like, I don't know when I need to start doing more reps, or I don't know when to stop, or I don't, you know, just highlighting those pieces.
Yeah.
So I share that to say, like, the work you're doing is so important, because even if you, to speak further to your point, even if you think you're in a healthy mindset, there's still work to be done.
Totally. Yeah.
So your work is so important.
Thank you.
Like, and it's hard also to be in that space with folks at times.
Totally.
You know.
Yeah.
So it's to have it be your personal and professional, and to have to hold accountability constantly.
Totally.
Is incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Like, I get to go home after my job and just be drained and exhausted and not talk to anyone. Like, you have to go home and still make dinner. Like, still make the grocery list, you know, all the things.
Yeah.
So you're in it.
I think, like, but in a beautiful way, I think we're all in it. You know, like, we all are just fighting the fight in the best way we can. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, what's coming up for you? Like, what's next?
Yeah.
What's on the agenda? What are you currently doing? What do you want people to know about?
Man, that's like, as far as a business goes, just from like the nitty gritty, I'm in the process of hiring an admin. I'm in the process of
get it.
Trying to delegate a little bit more.
Awesome. Practicing what we preach.
Yeah, seriously.
I love it.
Trying to.
Yes.
I am bringing my dietitians on. They've all been independent contractors, so bringing them on
nice.
as employees.
Dude.
Yeah. So
Good luck.
Thank you. I'm in
That's
this.
hard.
Yeah. It's so hard. I had kind of been wavering back and forth for a while about it, and that's just the way I make decisions. And then when I decided to jump into it, it has felt so overwhelming, but we're in it and we're trying to move the business forward that way. Yeah.
Well, and long term, it'll be great for your business,
Totally.
I imagine.
Yeah.
But it is a very hard transition. There's a lot of pieces to it. It requires a lot of trust.
Totally.
And a lot of money.
Yeah. Seriously. Yes.
Which I think sometimes people don't understand.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's awesome.
Thanks.
That's good.
Yeah.
Nice. How big is your team right now?
5 dietitians and 1 trainer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where would you want to be in an ideal?
Oh,
Or do you
I
feel
don't
maxed
know.
out?
I think we have more potential with like the team we have to like build a little bit more into like building their client load up a little bit and kind of diving in a little bit more to their like niches. I'm not against hiring more. I just feel like at this point I would be doing whoever I hired a little bit of a disservice because I don't feel like I'm ready yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's good to know. Capacity.
Yeah. It's a thing.
Yes, it is. Do you guys accept insurance
We do. Yeah.
for referrals that
Yeah.
are going to be sent your way?
Yes.
Okay.
Which is like been a game changer. It's been like the best decision I've made as a business owner thus far is to accept insurance.
Incredible. No
Yeah.
one ever says that.
I
must
should
be
say
new
it's
to
not
insurance.
easy,
Yeah.
but it opens up a lot of doors. Like
Yeah.
we're able to see so many more people because of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In any other state, people just pay out of pocket for services. Like they don't want insurance kind of entangled in their business. And
Yeah.
for some reason, Spokane is so insurance heavy.
Yeah.
People love to use their insurance. It's literally my nightmare. But we do it.
And I think I don't know a ton about from the therapy world, but
Yeah.
it seems way more complicated on your end than
insane. You
has
fight
been
for
for
the
me.
stupidest shit.
Yeah, I bet.
You're like, why am I fighting for my client to have mental health services
know.
when they're actively suicidal or whatever it is? It's like we're fighting for lives and you're fighting for money.
Totally.
So it's
Which
a grind.
does bother me so much about the insurance companies. It's like
Yeah.
I've been contracted with insurance for I think maybe 4 years now, and my rates have not changed. And it's like that pisses me off.
Oh yeah.
It's like inflation has happened so much with the economy has happened, but my rates haven't changed.
You
and
can
that's-
advocate for your rates to change.
Totally, but that's a whole other step.
It is. It is. The minute it left my mouth, capacity.
Totally.
But it's crazy that you even have to advocate for
seriously.
it. Yeah, that they're not just like, hey, we're giving you a raise
Totally.
because we're undervaluing the services you do as it is.
Seriously. And then like on
Yeah.
the flip side to see what like influencers charge for their programs and people
Oh
pay
my
for it. And I'm like,
gosh.
why are you not paying for it's crazy.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Don't even get me started. That's a whole tangent.
Seriously.
Cannot even. I'm like, what qualifies you to charge $300 an hour when
Seriously.
a psychiatrist wouldn't even be charging that?
Totally.
And if it is, let's get into a whole conversation around ethical guidelines
Yeah.
and accessibility to care.
Totally.
What the fuck?
Seriously.
It makes me so angry.
And like why are people drawn to that and then not drawn to the real work?
I think quick fixes, man.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
so
it's like
true.
image, quick fix, like, oh, I can look like her if I just,
Totally.
funnel her, whatever, $300 a month. And it's like, you don't even have the same body type.
Totally.
You don't even know what your body needs. You don't even understand what's happening in your body because you haven't even done basic testing.
Totally.
It doesn't translate like that. But I digress. Like I said, it's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing. Yeah.
So that's exciting. So you
Yeah.
accept insurance so people can
Yes.
use their insurance with you.
Yeah.
Do you take private and state?
Unfortunately, we don't take state because there just is not
They won't
should
pay
they
for
cover?
it.
Yeah.
God forbid. We
Seriously.
pay for people to be healthy. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So we
Okay.
only take private insurance.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you do any sliding scale or any pro bono or any free offerings or resources for people who want to access but can't afford?
Totally. That's not like a space that I've totally dove into really. I'm totally willing to have a conversation if funds are an issue.
Awesome.
Yeah, but it's not something that I have like a
Capacity.
capacity.
Everything in balance,
Yes.
Amy. I don't know if you know that.
I'm hearing it back.
Yeah. Your wisdom is awesome. It applies to so much.
So much.
Okay, so you would be open, but
Yeah.
it's something to have a conversation.
Totally. It's not like posted anywhere with anything formal.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. So 5 dietitians and then 1 trainer.
Mm-hmm.
Are there openings? Are you guys full?
We have a little bit of a wait list right now. So there are soon to be openings, but we have a
It's
little
rolling.
bit of a wait list. Yeah.
Good, which is a good problem to have.
Yeah. Except for after my maternity leave, I came back and there was this huge wait list. And the bummer is people like go and find other options. And so
Totally.
it's like, which is great for them. But I'm like, dang it, we missed out on being able to help them.
Yeah.
Because it just took too long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the reality of business. You
Totally.
know? I mean, I have that problem as well at times. So it's usually if you have a good long wait list, it's time to expand.
Yeah, totally. So true.
Not to counter what you said earlier, but
I'm like trying to break it out into steps.
yeah.
That's maybe 3 or 4 steps down the line.
Yeah. Yes. So awesome. Okay, well, that's all I'm curious about a lot more.
Yeah.
But like as far as time constraint, I think that's all we have time for today. So
Awesome.
thank you for coming.
Yeah,
and
thank you for
chatting.
having me. Yeah.
Yes,
This
I
was so fun.
appreciate it. Absolutely. Can you tell people where to reach you?
Yeah, our website is www.yourfueltothrive.com. That's probably the easiest way to access us.
Okay. So go check out Amy, everyone. Go check out Fuel to Thrive. She's awesome. You've heard it straight from her mouth. Have a good week. Thanks for listening in.